What the hell is wrong with people out there? I mean, I just don't understand how a party just sort of, we watch this real time, the complete and utter disintegration of a once proud political party, that to the point where Laura Trump is its national spokesperson, is its leader, effectively, for Donald Trump. I just, it just boggles the mind. And then they wonder why they don't have cash in the coffers. They've obliterated any ground operations by firing everybody. All the people who put all that infrastructure in place, who know how to run it, aren't there. And now they're putting up litmus tests to hire new people whose first and foremost goal is, okay, what does Donald Trump want? Not how does this candidate win?
Right. I mean, that's why I thought it was stunning. I'm not sure if you saw the headline in your own favorite Politico headline. Vulnerable Republicans bet their seats on Trump. Of the 17 Republicans who represent districts Biden won in 2020, 11. So 11 of those 17 have endorsed Trump, where it's like, what are you doing?
Because
losing?
They're worried about what he's going to do to them.
Of course.
Right? That fear of what he's doing to the judges, what he's saying on Truth Social, even though a lot less people see it than when he was on Twitter. One question I always have for Republicans, and where I have yet to get like a really, really answer that has satiated it, is what was it about the Republican Party that it was kind of primed for a takeover like this from someone like Donald Trump, right?
Yeah.
And the best that I've kind of gotten is people who are former Republicans, people like Stuart Stevens, right, who say that we spent a long time playing footsies with the elements of the party that now have taken over the party.
Did.
And none of us thought, even in 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, that this was going to come back and bite us. And it has, right?
But, Gene, there's a reason why I gave a national speech as national chairman that the Southern strategy of the Republican Party was over. We would no longer, as a national party, play footsie with that element, which we have been playing footsie with since the 1930s. And we had moments where it was either the John Birch Society in the 50s and 60s, certainly the Southern strategy of Nixon, then, of course, the moral majority bargain that Reagan made that gave us a whole lot of other issues that have put this sort of, neo-Christian value thing into politics. And then, of course, Tea Party and Trump. So it is something we've always sort of danced with. And I just never really understood why. Because when you look at the history of the party and its march towards individual rights and liberties, civil liberties, and all of that, to then harbor for political purposes. And that's really what it was, is harboring these elements inside the party. That Southern strategy was trying to get white Southern men who were pissed off that Johnson had decided to embrace civil rights. And so Nixon figured, at that time, the only way you could win the presidency was to go through the South. So you need it. It's why Kennedy went to Texas that fateful day in Dallas, to shore up the base in Texas, because the Democrats were losing strength among white Southern men. And so that element's always been there, and it's been frustrating to watch the party capitulate to it. Donald Trump seized on it and magnified its role and influence in the party. Here we are.
One thing that always fascinates me is that the party and Trump sometimes feel like separate entities, right? That he will say something and then they try to have it both ways, like Laura Trump saying, no, the 2020 election, we have moved on, we've learned lessons. Donald Trump has not done that. Right? He is going, if that is going to be what the apparatus of the party is telling people to say, one man who is not going to do that is the man at the top of that party.
Well, it's very telling that you have Laura Trump saying, no, the 2020 election settled, it's in the past, at a moment when she knows they are actively asking recruits whether or not they believe that the 2020
She's having that conversation at home with family members, her father-in-law, who's saying the exact opposite, and is not going to say anything different, right? They've done this over and over and over again, Republicans, where they say, we're going to move on from some of the more racist things that Donald Trump has said, the misogynistic things that he said.
While they continue to play in the misogyny
and while he continues, more importantly, to say it over and over and over again with the biggest microphone in the country.
One final quick point before we move on. The whole idea with the judge and the going after the family members and going after their clerks and all of that. What is it that our legal system doesn't get at this point to shut this down? I mean, I said it very clearly, and it kind of became a meme out there on Twitter, what I thought the judges should be doing, and that is put his behind. I'll be polite so Kyle doesn't lose his mind. Put his behind in jail. That'll shut him up. But they won't do that. Am I missing something? That he just, with impunity, gets to go after family members and judges and think that, okay, this is okay, this is normal?
I mean, legal experts will tell you they're worried about the blowback of something like that, putting Donald Trump in jail. We saw on January 6th what happens, right, when Donald Trump supporters feel aggrieved in some way, whether it's true or not. If that were to happen, when I talk to like lawyers and former judges, what they say is those people are thinking through the political blowback that would happen, the actual violence here in D.C. and around the country that could happen if that were to happen.
Why they subject themselves to violence, because that's what he's out here doing.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.